Today's focus is India has 1 billion plus people and basically no Tesla presence. And the question of the day is, why is that? And when is this likely to change? This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy the show, would like some tips and ideas that will be helpful in your process of better investment in Tesla, especially heading into this important period, I highly recommend you join us over on Patreon. We also want to note this is a copyrighted broadcast. Any use of the descriptions or other information provided here is prohibited. So I also quickly wanted to mention that for those of you who are musicians, I just learned something about Mr. Jamerson, who was the gentleman who played the bass line for most of the big hits for Motown back in the day. And because he had played upright bass prior to learning to play the regular bass guitar, he would actually play with one finger most of the notes versus alternating between two fingers as a way to be able to play faster. So I'm trying that out here on the guitar on our Ode to Joy intro, which is required to be very short. So I wanted to note today that I'm kind of excited today because India is a country that for me is pretty awesome. Food is amazing, a lot of brilliant people. I particularly am Indian curry for that, particularly the lamb vindaloo is fantastic. So I was kind of surprised to see that basically there's no Tesla presence really in India. And the question was like, what's going on here? Because there are all those people in theory to be served. So I wanted to point out that there are some interesting rumblings for India. Obviously, Tesla has talked about opening a couple of service or centers there, sales facilities, probably entering in the mall fashion that they've done in around the United States, and then going from there with service centers, etc. But there's a noticeable absence of obviously service centers, but also sort of sales facilities in malls or other places, as well as the most important thing in my mind is superchargers. Like basically, if you do sell some cars there and there's no supercharger network to support it, that's sort of the secret sauce of how and why Tesla really works. So all of this again gets us into the why. The final note on the preview of this is the fact that the Indian government has agreed to meet the sort of cost structure that Tesla is experiencing in China, even if they have to use their own money. So there seems to be some enthusiasm from the Indian government to sort of get in on the Tesla parade, targeting the construction of a Giga factory is the goal. So I have to say that what's stunning to me is, all of the natural ingredients of why Tesla exists. There's a country with a lot of pollution, a lot of people, and a lot of potential to move a lot of cars, it seems. So there are several elements to how and why this works. The first element is that India's annual car market is approximately 5 million vehicles. So that's a new car market per annum. Now, number one, 5 million vehicles relative to a billion population is extremely low. China's is actually scheduled by 2025 to be 27 million vehicles annually. China's middle class is the same size. China's middle class is the same size as the entire population of the United States, in that 60 million territory. So obviously, and so China being, 5 times the size potentially, makes it clear why Tesla has chosen to be in China and obviously not in India. Obviously, there's a lot of economic incentives that China is providing to help make the switch that India has not, and obviously that's also one of the variables that are impacting things. The second issue that pops up is something called usable market. So right now, China has a circumstance where by 2025, they're mandating that at least 20% of the cars being sold in China should be electric vehicles. So you can kind of do the math. If you got 27 million cars and you have a 20% target, and the government is spending money to get there in a lot of different ways, the likelihood of arrival there is fairly high, which is why Tesla likely will push as hard as possible to get large numbers of cars to sell in that space to meet the Chinese process, if you will. Now, India, on the other hand, has a 5 million per year usable market. But the worst part of the India equation is that they have 95% of the vehicles in India are sub $20,000 vehicles. So I'll repeat that again. 95% of the vehicles sold in India as new cars are sub $20,000 vehicles. So one of the key components of how and why Tesla is not in India is something called the usable market. So right now, Tesla doesn't have any vehicles that, unless they're used theoretically, that go below the 20,000 mark. So, and the goal right now is to hit 25K. And if you're at 25K, you're still above where most of the market is for India. So I just think that when I heard that number, I was shocked, or read that number, I was shocked. How can a country that big have such a small usable market? And then you have to sort of extrapolate to the fact that, if your usable market is sub $1 million heading for 500,000 for all vehicles above 20K, you have to think that half of the above 20K vehicles are going to be kind of in that 30 to 35,000 region, again, below even where Tesla is currently and likely to be over the next couple of years. So if your market, your potential there is to sell, call it 50,000 or less vehicles per year, which is probably where Tesla's at there. Basically, it's a situation where you ship in, 1 or 2 boatloads of cars every year, but that's it. And it's interesting because we actually have not seen large numbers of vehicles being shipped to India from either of the Tesla production facilities. Obviously, that could change, but I'm kind of stunned, shocked that this is actually the case. But nonetheless, that is the case. Elon, relative to India, has definitely talked up a good game. So there are places that have discussed wanting to have gigafactories or wanting to sell Teslas, etc. And when Elon/Tesla is motivated, things can happen very quickly. When they're not, Elon tends to do a process where he discusses it, he embraces the suggestions of what's going on, and then we kind of go from there. So I guess after I read these data points, I'm still scratching my head, because part of the reason I was excited about taking a look at what's going on in India relative to Tesla is that I actually get a lot of, at least once a week, once every other week, one of my viewers from India actually poses the question of when will Tesla arrive in India. And my constant response has been that India is somewhat of a protected market. And, a couple other data points articulate this. Ford spent $2 billion and left. GM left as well. And the most shocking departure is Harley Davidson left as well. So it really illustrates the point that India does have huge numbers, but there's a difference between a prospect and a suspect. And from what Elon is saying, from his body language and the focus of where the gigafactories are going, there isn't enough potential for sales there for it to be a priority for Tesla right now. I have to say that one other note here is that given the population of India, we should have actually started seeing, much like what we saw in Australia, dedicated ships full, maybe once a quarter or so, of Teslas that are arriving in India. And that's not happening either. So clearly, Tesla is a data-driven company, and we expect that eventually things will happen there. But I really think that we're in the zone with India where nothing happens there until Tesla routinely is delivering $25,000 vehicles, because I think that at that price point, we're going to see sort of a critical mass of demand where you can at minimum be shipping in and set up superchargers to go with it. But until Tesla gets into that price range, I don't see how in the world the company can afford to do anything in India. And it illustrates why we haven't seen anything happen there, while there are small countries, like Norway or Finland or all these different places where they're getting numbers, and we're not seeing the similar kind of love going to India. I have to say that I'm shaking my head because, I still can't believe there are that many people there, but the size of the usable population for buyers is so small, and therefore it's hard for the whole infrastructure that Tesla needs to be successful, including superchargers, including service centers, including mall presences, to come together to show up. The one thing I would say that I have been learning about with India is, for example, when it comes to pumps to deliver groundwater into the farming facilities, etc., there is a move by India to start embracing solar energy to support pollution reduction and cost reduction related to transitioning out of just using fossil fuels to, get their energy going. So I think this is great. I really think that the tipping point for when India is going to become a factor is when we see a couple of megapack facilities with solar and wind sort of installed by Tesla as a warm-up. And Australia is booming in this regard, but we really have not been seeing this show up in India either. So I guess what I want to say here is I'm really hopeful that things come together for Tesla to enter India. But I just have to say that sometimes you see the data and I still can't believe it. But that's the situation right now, where it's not a viable market for many companies, including Tesla right now. And from a climate change perspective, it'd be awesome to see this change dramatically. But it does finally answer a question that I've been wondering about is, how come Tesla's not there? And there's no enthusiasm whatsoever to get there either. Now, if the Indian government actually chose to start doing some incentives, get involved with a basically free factory like Shanghai did, I definitely think we could see a big change here. But until then, I think that we'll wait for the 25K car. Those will get shipped in, and the more of those that are shipped in and there's demand seen, that's when we'll end up with the evolution to, a lot of cars being sold, and then we actually get a gigafactory being built. So come on, Elon, we can figure this out. Let's do some mega packs and then let that feed the installation of some charging facilities in areas where you might sell cars. And then we go from there for this to be a very successful marketplace for Tesla. At any rate, I want to thank you for joining us. This is the end of our Tesla comments, and we're moving on to our health tips. Wanted to remind you, do not go to bed within 2 hours of eating. Minimum, preferably 4, is a recommendation from an upper respiratory doc. Even if you're able to get over it by using Tums and other things, it's a surface level, not a deep level repair that you're doing in that fashion. So I also wanted to encourage you to, prior to lovemaking, only do a salad, because all the blood flow that would go to your stomach for the digestion process is now free to move to other portions of your body. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss German, au revoir French, Lahithro, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi, Tadai, Russian, Nihama, Chinese, Konbanwa, Japanese, and in Jamaica we say enough respect, walk good, and namaste in Hindi. Have a great day, and bye for now. And we have some ocean video that we usually end with as kind of a meditative way to do the forest bathing that we've talked about numerous times on our show.